Hey everyone, I wanted to make a quick video about transness and how it can relate to the heart of the message of the Bhagavad-gītā, and essentially how we fit into spirituality, because I see a lot of people saying we are adharmic and sinful and evil, and I want to clear that up using scripture, using the Bhagavad-gītā, which is a Hindu text, a uh, very illustrious text. I like it. Anyway, we're going to start with chapter 10, verse 20, where Krishna says, I'm not going to do the whole verse in Sanskrit, but I do have the translation. Aham Atma Godakesha. And Godakesha is Arjuna. Aham Atma means Aham is I, Atma is self. So he's saying, I am the self. And the final word in that sentence is a long word, but it translates to seated in the heart of all beings. And all beings in this case is in reference to these manifestations of form. So it's not entirely the self, it's the living embodiment, the thing that the self is inside of, relatively speaking. So he says, I am the self. So he is yourself and myself. Continuing that verse, it says, I am the beginning, middle, and end of all beings. So not just heterosexual beings, not just cis gender beings, all beings. Me included, you included, everyone. It's great. And so that is Kṛṣṇa talking to Arjuna, describing his relationship with all these different beings that seem different, are all actually, he's actually the self in all of them. He is the I. Not to be confused with the sense of being, the sense of I, but that's another story. So Kṛṣṇa. We want to know more about Kṛṣṇa because he's saying he's myself and he's yourself, so who's Kṛṣṇa? And we can go to chapter 9, verse 18. We're going back a chapter, where Kṛṣṇa says, I am the destination, the sustainer, the Lord, the witness, the abode, the shelter, and the most intimate friend. He says, I am the origin, the dissolution, the foundation of everything, the resting place, and the seed imperishable. So there's a lot in there. First off, Kṛṣṇa is describing himself, but since we know that Kṛṣṇa is ourself, we know Kṛṣṇa is describing us. So this is a way of getting to know yourself better, I guess, from the perspective of the Gita. So it says, I am the destination. What is the destination? The destination is what you're trying to get to by doing spiritual practices. By meditating, by chanting, by praying, by going to church, by even taking psychedelics, what you're trying to get to, that peace, that bliss, that freedom from suffering, Kṛṣṇa is that destination. He is that, what we're trying to gain access to. And we get more information as Kṛṣṇa says, I am the witness. What is the witness? It may seem obvious to some, but it just means like how you see me and the screen you're looking at this on, and you see that, that witnessing, that is Kṛṣṇa. And so you have a thought or a feeling, an emotion, and that witnessing is Kṛṣṇa. So what is the witness? What is Kṛṣṇa? He is your own witnessing, your own consciousness. Let's see. Kṛṣṇa says, I am the abode. What is the abode? We use the abode to say a home, welcome to my humble abode, an apartment building, a place of residence, a physical structure. But in this verse and in the Gita in general, abode, which is a translation of a Sanskrit word, is in reference not necessarily to a physical structure or place in the way we think of it. It is an eternal state of being. And state of being is kind of an iffy thing to say about it, but it is where your I, the sense of I, rests. It is that, the existence of your existence. That essence is what all of this rests in. It is the abode, the supreme holder, the supreme gathering place of all. It's what everything settles into. So, let's see. Kṛṣṇa says also, he is the seed imperishable. And that's a little esoteric, that translation, and that phrase in general. But it means he is the eternal potency of existence, to which acts like a seed does, in that it sprouts existence like a flower. And it is imperishable, so that seed never loses the potency to sprout existence. So back to how Kṛṣṇa says he is the abode. We want to know more about that specifically, because that, I think, is where we really get info into the spiritual capacities of trans people, which match those of cis people. So we can look to a verse from chapter 8. Let's see. We'll go for chapter 8, verse 21, and then go back again to chapter 8, verse 20. And then go back to chapter 8, verse 18. So here we have Kṛṣṇa says, he's describing, what's he describing? He's describing the unmanifest. Okay, formatting, working with me. Here we go. Okay. Kṛṣṇa says, chapter 8, verse 21, it is that which is called the unmanifest and infallible, and is known as the supreme destination, like in the other verse from chapter 9. They who reach it never again return. That is my supreme abode. He's describing the abode. So there's a couple things to get into with this one. Firstly, we'll say, it says they who reach it never again return. What does it mean to reach it? To reach it is to recognize it. It is not that you go mentally or physically from one place to another place, or from one state to another state, but it is reached by the elimination of ignorance. So by seeing it, you reach it. By recognizing it, you reach it. It's already here. It's already got you covered. But to reach it is to see it. And it says they never return again. What does that mean? It means by reaching the unmanifest and the infallible, who you thought you were vanishes. So that you never fully returns. Not in the same way, not as you as that. It's just kind of a mechanism to interact with the world at that point, that your personality. But he's saying the unmanifest and infallible, the supreme destination, that is my supreme abode or state of existence. Kṛṣṇa says that is my abode. What is his abode? The unmanifest and the infallible. And with the verse from chapter 9, we know Kṛṣṇa is that abode itself. And with the verse from chapter 10, we know Kṛṣṇa is our own self. So what does that mean? That means that we are not inherently broken. We are not inherently evil or good in the dualistic sense. We are pure. We are the unmanifest and infallible. We are not capable of decaying, of losing existence, of losing our state of existence. The only thing that can happen is something appears inside of it. And it is unmanifest. What does that mean? We can go to verse 20 to see. In the previous verse, verse 19, he's talking about how all the living beings manifest and then become unmanifest. And in verse 20, he's saying there exists another unmanifested, one that is eternal and transcendental. You see, the manifest of physicality is temporary. It comes and goes. But the unmanifest, which is described as transcendental, is ever unmanifest. It is ever non-physicalized. That can't happen to this unmanifested. And what is the unmanifested? It is the destination. What is the destination? Kṛṣṇa's supreme abode. What is Kṛṣṇa's supreme abode? It is Kṛṣṇa, who is Kṛṣṇa, our own self. So this is not annihilated nor created. It's different from created and destroyed things, which are ever temporary. And this is ever pure. So to get more on the created and destroyed, we can go back to chapter 18 also. Chapter 8, verse 18. And we see from the unmanifested, that is the transcendental unmanifested, all living beings arise. So all of these arise, and they again dissolve back into it. So that is describing the manifest and the unmanifest of this stuff. And then we get to, we can begin to analyze, now that we know we are not wrong and that this stuff is all manifested and unmanifested energy anyway, and that it is all manifest and controlled by the Supreme, and that we are beyond it. This is just the way it is. And now we know we have the capability to reach that abode, as said in that verse from chapter 8. So how do we do that? How do we reach it? There are endless ways, but I have found the easiest way is as described in chapter 18, the final chapter of the Gita. You'll see in verse 62 and 66 very complementary verses. Chapter 18, verse 62 says, "Surrender unto him for refuge with all your being, with all respects, every aspect of your life. Surrender unto him." Who's him? Kṛṣṇa, the Supreme. By his grace, you shall obtain transcendental peace and the eternal abode. So that is a clear statement, a very concise formula, which lets us know a direct way of reaching that abode, that of reaching God, essentially, reaching the purest aspect of existence as it is here. So, to surrender, what does it mean to surrender is an interesting question, because I don't think you can do it consciously. Like, you can't say, "I'm surrendered," and then be surrendered. It takes a genuine understanding that can be developed over time. It's interesting. One way to begin to surrender is to remove yourself from certain things. For instance, the food that we eat and the objects that we own. Begin to develop an understanding that they are not yours. They are not literally your property. It cannot ever truly be owned by you. It is just there. In other words, this little you, this personality, is not a proprietor. How? Why? Both the personality and the object that one considers theirs are both manifested properties of the same universe. Which means they are universal property. They are for nature to do with as she pleases, not as the personality wants to, and the personality itself is a tool of nature. This doesn't mean to kill the personality, it means let it go, let it be. And when we eat food, know that the food is not ours. We don't own it. It is the universe's food. It is the supreme. It is for that offering this offering my personality, offering my food, offering the objects that I own to the supreme. That is a way of building surrender. And surrender is, it's more of an understanding that this is really the only way things are. And that the personality is not a proprietor. It builds that understanding by doing that, by saying this is only yours, only the supreme's, and saying this is not mine, and having some solid understanding of the universe as to why that is, and then that deepens. And in verse 66 of chapter 18 we see why it is so pertinent and easy to attain the abode by surrender. So we see, it says, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. That is Kṛṣṇa saying, as the supreme, just surrender yourself. And by surrender yourself, it means understand the personality is in effect not controlled by you. It is the supreme's. That's what it means to surrender the self, to know that, to actually understand that. And in doing so, the Supreme recognizes this and says, oh, here's a person who's ready to be free, who's ready to be free from the unending ups and downs of attachment to the mind and the personality and cravings. So, came a long way. Yeah, I really like that. And this doesn't say, only those straight people, only those cisgender people can surrender unto me, and only they will get deliverance from sinful reactions, reactions that harm us, that inevitably lead to suffering. That is sin. Sin is not moral. It's what causes you pain. What is limiting you? What is limiting your freedom? That's sinful. And so, by surrendering, by saying this is all yours, that this is not mine. Even the trajectory of my life, what happens when I do things, will my business fail? Will I be able to afford college? Will I graduate college? I'm in college currently. Will I have a home? Will I have to sleep on the streets tonight? I've been there. That is all beyond your decision-making capabilities, whether that happens or not. That is the responsibility of the entire cosmos. And so surrendering means accepting that, understanding that. And like that's why it isn't something you can just do. You can't just surrender, because it takes a genuine understanding. And we build that through spiritual practices, by studying scriptures, by learning from someone who knows, who has surrendered. And I am nobody, but, and I haven't had initiation into any school of Vedanta. I'm just a little trans woman talking about my experience and my interpretation of scripture. And with all of that, going back to the verse we started with, Ahamatma, the Supreme is saying, I am yourself. I am the self of yourself. And it's very nice. He's not the self in some people and not others. He says Sarva. Sarva means everyone. So whatever purity applies to Kṛṣṇa applies to the self, as described by the Gitā, applies to trans people. And our little personalities, which are tools of the Supreme to enact a certain lila, a certain play of life experience, we are beyond that. And it doesn't hinder us from reaching the Supreme Abode, from reaching Kṛṣṇa, from reaching truth. It is not a hindrance. So, yeah. I hope you enjoyed that. We are going to end the video in about 5 seconds. So, enjoy life. Enjoy life. Enjoy Kṛṣṇa. Enjoy the Gitā. Enjoy meditation. Enjoy chanting. Enjoy nature. Walk barefoot. Barefoot is so good. It's very good for everything. Look at a tree. That's nice, right? Taste some water and know you are interacting with Kṛṣṇa. The sun rays, Kṛṣṇa. The air, the wind, your breath, Kṛṣṇa. Bite.